I think it's always a heartwarming story when somebody can come from, like, when a baseball player has been in the minor leagues for so long and then is finally in the major leagues, right, Ike? When a player who's been in the minors for so long is finally in the majors, finally hits the big time.
A true underdog story.
A true underdog story. And here we have the WIP Morning Show's own James Seltzer finally getting the opportunity to be in the big leagues here on the WIP Afternoon Show. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, what an honor. Let me get this right. Hi, Spike. Hi, Ike. Hi, Jack.
There
Fritz,
you go.
Fritz, F-R-I-T-Z.
I know how you guys are doing.
Well, actually, my name goes first.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, my fault. My fault. But honestly, that's correct. That's the one I agree with on the show all the time. So it's just nice to know this whole time. I listen to the show. I'm friends with you guys. I see you all the time. I'm passionate about a million things. And you're like, oh, you know what? Tush. That's the thing to finally bring Seltzer.
Well, you're an expert on tushes.
Perfect.
Yes, you're Mr. Tush. Well, we didn't want to disturb your 3-week celebration of the Super Bowl.
It ain't over yet.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks. Try the rest of the year, man.
Well, let me ask you this.
I will celebrate forever.
Let me ask you this, James, before we get into the Tush push, because I was on with you guys this morning to talk about Embiid. You asked me about the Tush push. Before we get to that, you did mention, talking about the celebration, you did mention on Twitter, this is the best day of my life. And you are married with a child. And I'm wondering if there was any reverberations within your family when you noted that the Eagles winning the Super Bowl and then the parade were the best weeks of your life when you do have a child and a wife.
Yes. First and foremost, I said one of the best days of my life.
Okay.
But also, let me point out that I was with that wife and child for that day. So, yeah, it was awesome because I was with them and got to have this magical experience. My brother came down. We were with friends, with family, celebrating an amazing thing.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I mean, come on.
We just did it in 2018. It was only 6 years ago. Hey, come on.
Yeah.
Well, it's 7 years.
7 years ago.
We round down to make points.
Okay.
I was wondering how long it would take till you would pop in there.
So the reason we wanted to have you on is when we first were meeting during the show, we all realized that we were sort of ambivalent about them setting up a rule against the Tush push. And I was this morning, and then I heard Nick Sirianni talk, and he actually swayed me, and I'm on the other side. But I would like to give you the stage to give your passionate plea as to why the NFL should not make the Tush push illegal.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Spike, I want to say that I'm proud of you for being willing to change your opinion in this situation and come to the right side of things. I'm surprised, but I'm proud.
Doesn't happen very often.
No.
Does not happen very
Exactly.
often.
That's why I'm surprised. But because it's clearly the right side of things. I mean, the arguments against this thing are it's not a skill. Well, then why can only one team execute it properly? Like, if it's not a skill, then how can none of you do it correctly? You've all tried. All these teams try it. They do their version of the Tush push, and you can't execute it. So, that's a ridiculous argument. The second thing, it's not aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't look like football. It doesn't look that different from a quarterback sneak, which has been a part of football forever. It's basically the same thing. And then on top of that, people use, the camera this morning using, well, it's like the neutral zone trap in hockey. Get rid of the 3-second clock in basketball. It's no, it's not. That changes the entire three-hour game you're watching, the way the game is played. This is 2 plays a game, 3 plays a game, at most 5 plays a game. It's 30 seconds.
Yeah, about 5
time. What are we talking about here? This is just a situation. And then the injury thing. Have you guys seen anyone get hurt on a Tush push? Has an Eagle ever gotten hurt on the Tush push? We've never heard of it. They've been running it for 4 years now or whatever. I just feel like every argument that's brought to the table is nonsense. It's just teams don't like that the Eagles can do it and they can't. And they're just well, you know what? We're tired of it.
Well, why?
Well, I think a lot of defensive coaches believe that they are at a disadvantage. That's why I'm not surprised that the guys that you, other than the Packers GM, but, Raheem Morris is a defensive guy. Sean McDermott is a defensive guy. I'm not sure if anybody else spoke up about it, but I can understand where defensive coaches feel like they are helpless with this play and doing this. It's already stacked against defenses as far as what's permitted with offenses and it being an offensive league. This is one of those situations where it's a great advantage for us. They're not doing anything illegal. Let me just get that clear. They're doing everything within the rules of the game. But from a defensive standpoint, I can sort of understand where they feel like I'm helpless out here, right?
Well,
when we're not allowed, in other words, I don't think the defense, I guess they could be, but the defense isn't, I don't know if they're not allowed to or they just don't do it. But I don't see defensive players lining up behind the defensive linemen and pushing them because they have to worry about defending the field.
Right, the rest of the field.
They can't, because now the Eagles are running variations off the play, passing play, so they don't even have the ability to combat like a scrum in rugby to where you got both sides pushing against each other, and it's mono versus mono. This is somewhat of a disadvantage for a defense, so I can understand why they want it out of there.
But it's all to that point. It's only a disadvantage for teams playing the Eagles. They can stop.
That
it
is true. Yes.
It's like for one team, because this team runs this play so effectively that we're like, well, that's unfair to us defenses, but we can stop it when these other teams run it. Like if it were something where every team in the league ran it and it was this automatic play that was never stopped, it's like, all right, like then I can kind of maybe understand where it's like a league-wide thing, and it's for the good of the game because this is an unstoppable play, and it takes out the drama of 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. But the Eagles are the only team that executes it. And by the way, McDermott, we're talking out both sides of his mouth. I mean, that guy ran tush pushes this year. So it's like, how am I supposed to take that seriously when you're like, well, I'm going to run them, but also I'm really worried about my defensive guys. So, like, I can't take that very seriously.
Well, honestly, at the end of the day, this is on the league, and the teams can scream and cry all they want. I'm a little disappointed that the league would look at it and just say, now, truly, at the end of the day, the league has to answer to the teams.
Owners, yes.
Yeah, the league doesn't exist with, you know what I mean?
Yes.
There is no league. But I guess the thing that I would love to hear from Troy Vincent, if I was able to hear from Troy Vincent, and I think this is the point that Nick Sirianni made, and you made it there, James, is if it is an injury issue, please tell me how. Tell me how it's an injury issue. I would like to see the science on it because I can't think of injuries. Now when I watch it, I'm always waiting for an injury.
Right.
Every time I watch it, I'm convinced somebody's going to get hurt. But I haven't seen anybody get hurt, so I just wonder why they think why it is such an injury risk. Because they don't talk about the aesthetics of it. Troy Vincent talked about the safety of it.
Right.
So I just want to know, okay, well, what? Because if the league doesn't step in, I can't think of any reason why 24 teams wouldn't vote to get rid of it.
Well, here's the thing. There's no data to support the injury part of it.
Yep.
Nick had that ready to go. So they know this is more or less of teams viewing it as a competitive disadvantage, when it's really not a competitive disadvantage. This is why ultimately I think those that love the tush push, you don't have to worry about it. I don't think it's going anywhere because I don't think the league can explain why they're getting rid of it.
There's no evidence.
Other than other teams are just complaining about it. Like they really can't come up with the data that shows that this is a higher risk play for injury, right? The aesthetically pleasing part of it, they sound crazy saying that, right? This doesn't look good to everybody. So they would have to come up with some other sort of scientific reasoning where it would make sense to the public. And I don't know if 24 teams would actually vote in favor of this.
That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, you might get a handful of teams that are like, yeah, we want to get rid of this, but I don't know if 24 other teams are going to vote on this.
Here's my idea. We should have the Million Tush March in Philadelphia.
Tushes all that?
Everybody's tush. We had
we just had 1 million people out here.
Well, there are a lot of tushes there. You know,
and they weren't being pushed.
Yep.
Well,
some of them
were.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
Everybody pushes everyone else's tush, and the safely and respectfully at this march, but that's what's going to happen. Well,
It got weird.
Well, look.
Well, it gets weird on this show.
Yeah. All right, James. Well, now that I'm on your side, I can't fight with you because I agree with you. I think the argument. I think if every team, I think the best point you made, and I thought about this, is if every team was doing it, if a lot of teams were doing it successfully, then I understand the argument against it. It takes the drama out of the play. But if it's just one team, I think it's an interesting storyline. If it's every team, it sort of makes the game worse. If it's one team, I think it's a storyline. And I am interested to see what happens with this. There is drama. All right, Seltzer. What time do you go to bed?
So normally earlier than I have to take my daughter to gymnastics in a little bit. So after that, usually I try and get to bed between like 7 and 7:30. On like lucky nights, it's like 6:30, but that's rare. But it's all because baseball season's coming. And then once baseball season starts, I'm gonna have to stay up at the games. So
why do you go to bed so early?
Squeeze in to sleep when I can.
Why do you go to bed so early?
Because I wake up at 3:30, 3:50 in the morning or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
I mean, don't you live in the city?
You set that up. That was good. That was really clever. Well done.
So, last question, James. Who is easier to deal with at 5 in the morning before the show starts? Joe DeCamara or John Ritchie? Who is more troubling at 5 a.m.?
The question is who's easier to deal with?
Who's more troubling? Who's more troubling to look at?
Oh, troubling to look at. I mean.
Come on.
I mean, this is they're both troubling in their own way. I was
it's the camera.
We know it's the camera.
Yeah, it's the camera.
All right, James.
All right, brother. Passion. Now that I finally made it on the show.
Yes, absolutely. Great job.
Awesome. We got to have you back soon.
Welcome to the big leagues, Chris Coast.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
There he is. James.
If I record the pod tomorrow, we'll find out.
James Seltzer. You can hear him on the WIP Morning Show every morning with Joe DeCamara, John Ritchie, James Seltzer, Rhea Hughes, occasionally Devin Caney,
Ben Davis, Ruben Amaro Jr.
Now, how
Mike
many
Quick.
names are in the show? I can't even think of how many names are in the show. Oh, none.
Isn't the camera?
The camera in the morning show.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
And the morning team?
I think it's the Joe DeCamara show featuring other people is the official name of the show.
He's lucky there's even team there. You know what I mean? Like Angelo at least was like Angelo in the morning team, right?
Yes.
I think DeCamara, the first thing he did was take team out of it.
Yes. Oh, it's not a team. It's a one-guy operation.
And they continue to disrespect Kenny from the Dirty 30.
They do, just by calling him Kenny.
Yeah, every time they go to him, it's like, all right, let's go to Kenny.
Yeah.
No one knows who Kenny is.
Yeah, Kenny from the Dirty 30.
Kenny from Villanova does not hit the same as Kenny from the Dirty 30.
No. Are they calling him Kenny from Villanova?
No, they just call him Kenny.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't say that stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.